Welcome to this episode of FutureProof You's podcast. Go F yourself. I am your co host, Aaron McKelkey, joined as always by my fellow hosts, John Lovig and
Oh,
Dan Yu. Our topic today is what you need to know to succeed on LinkedIn in 2026. You probably see people who post all the time. They're tryhards like Dan and John and I. And you should be posting more, but you aren't. We're going to give you the no BS, what you need to know to start posting consistently and get results on LinkedIn without the trendy influencer BS stuff that you see online. We have insider info from Dan, who was actually at LinkedIn's headquarters in 2026, talking directly to people there, what works, what doesn't, things to skip, things to use. So with that, let's start, Dan. The changes on LinkedIn. What's something that's different today that somebody who maybe used to post or thought they understood the algorithm in years past needs to know doesn't work the same on LinkedIn?
well, I think the um, the basics of social media still apply, right? And that if you if you have engagement, right? So if you ever apply, you still have to engage back so that you can get exposed to your commenters networks. And I think that's lost with a lot of people. And so what works today, I think, is actually having thoughtful comments back to your audience. And we've talked about this in other podcasts as well. It's commenting on other people's posts as well is also really helpful, and it's a great way to scale your networking. And so I think the first part is get over your apprehensions, and it's okay. You know what? It's you just got to get yourself out there.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about, John, is that posts on social media are by nature temporary and ephemeral. One, you can delete them later, but even if you leave them up, let's say on your LinkedIn profile, and they're bad, who's going to see them anyways? What are some things that helped you get comfortable with posting regularly, even if you didn't initially see good results?
Me, I would say I think it's just, for me, it was always about personal brand and trying to gain some level of credibility in the role that I've been in. And so I did that from pretty early on in my career because I felt it was important. And it was also a space where not as many people were posting. So for me, it was a way to try and get visibility, try and get professional credibility. And so that got me over the hump. And just over the years, I learned some of the things that really drive engagement. I've seen high impact photos. Anything that's a really striking image that stands out when someone's scrolling gains interest. Um, so I tend to be very selective over the photography that I use or the images that I use. Because you can see a difference if it's something striking and bold and apparent, especially if it's bright and or like sometimes I've seen a lot of success with black and white images too, I think, because people just gravitate towards them. Yeah, one of the things that I learned at LinkedIn, right, is photos and videos, of course, do better, right? Because that's part of the hook. And so one of the greatest pieces of advice that I got in this from the head of content at LinkedIn, right? So having a strong uh, photo, having a strong hook at the top, your first 2.5 lines is so important to have. And so having that as a lead in will create more engagement. And then more engagement begets impression.
Yes. When we talk about engagement, what are engagements on LinkedIn? What are the different ways that people can engage with content?
Well, there's obviously the easy ones, the buttons, right? So, like, heart, you know, funny or laughing face. I think those are really easy.
And that, those are engagements, those do count, but I think those are commoditized. Having a real comment in your reply, back to either your own post where somebody's replied to you or to somebody else's post, I think those are much more meaningful. We can also, um, take a hard look at, the congratulations button. Anybody can smash that button. And so the quality engagement that you have, I think, will increase your visibility much more than just any button.
Yeah, and on most platforms, the cheapest form of engagement is the button Dan's talking about that's default like. On LinkedIn, one of the things I try to do is I don't leave likes as of time of the recording. If you tap on like on mobile or hover your mouse, here's your options. You have like, celebrate, which is the clapping hands, support, which is the hand with the heart, love, insightful, which is the light bulb, and then funny. I don't think it makes a difference which one that you do. They all essentially count the same. But just because likes are default, I never leave likes. The next highest form of engagement in terms of algorithms saying, hey, Dan put this post out and one person hit like, that's not going to push it out as much as a comment. And then, like Dan said, an
Mm-hmm.
insightful value add, not just congrats or this is awesome or AI generated slop, is going to be the highest form of commenting. But a lot of people don't know you can actually add images in your comments. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody knows this outside of LinkedIn, but I have to think an image in your comment is going to be weighted more than just text. And that's certainly going to count higher than one of the reactions, the like, the support, the love. There's also repost. There's repost with your thoughts. That's where you're going to quote and then it puts the original post below. That's definitely worth more than a reaction. There's also the send button. So you can just send it on the platform and DM this article to somebody. And then in the top corner, if you hit the three bars, I think this is poorly designed on LinkedIn's part. There is a save and a copy link. And those definitely count because the whole time you're staying on the post, the dwell time of the viewer, that's signaling to the platform, hey, this person didn't just scroll by and ignore it. And that's going to push it out to more people. So when Dan says engagements beget more impressions, let's go back to that for a minute and use an example. So John posts, "Hey, we're looking to hire this role." Dan, pick it up from there. What's the highest engagement way that gets spun up in this whole model of engagements begetting impressions?
So if I comment bumping from my network to his job post, that'll serve it to the feed of my few thousand followers. Him replying back to my post, to my, sorry, my comment will actually reserve it back up to my followers. So John, has 11,000 followers or so, somewhere on there. I have 11,000, so as that network effect, right? So, 11 plus 11 times two, right? Has a greater chance of being seen.
Minus 250 because that's our overlap
Yeah.
of 250 people.
And
Right.
I think what this helps explain, we all know this across social media platforms, but on LinkedIn, it's definitely true. The controversial post that the comment section turns into a debate. We've all seen those where someone comes into John's thread. It's like, no, that's not how recruiting in 2026 works. And it could be John, it could be a follower of John's, and it turns into a whole threaded conversation in the comment section. That idea that somebody had to stop and put their 2 cents, whether they agreed, disagreed, whatever, it's actually best, I think, if you get both. That's feeding this effect that Dan's talking where it's like, oh, people like it. People keep engaging. The dwell time is driven up. The engagement rate is up. Push it out to another 1,000 viewers. And
Mm-hmm.
we've all seen those. Dan, you have a habit of texting us and kind of teasing us like, oh, this post is at 100,000 views and I'm not sure why. That's the algorithm at work, and it's likely a, a result of this idea that early on, so the number of people throw out, I don't know if there's any official info or anyone at LinkedIn told you this, Dan, but the number that I always hear is there's a 30-minute timer that starts when you hit post. Getting those engagements in the first 30 minutes are the most impactful, and your response to them as the original poster, the creator, is most important in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I had a silly post just the other day, and really did not add any value to the universe, and yet it's my best performing post in the past year. So who knows, right? I mean, other than I did the work, right, and I re-engaged back the replies.
Yeah. And John and I would disagree that your post didn't add value to the universe, because nostalgia on a Friday is a powerful drug on LinkedIn, and you have proved that to be true with your inter-office mail envelope post, because I'm pretty sure that's the one you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the one.
One of my colleagues had a high performing post, and it was about Catherine O'Hara and kind of what she learned having met her in person real quickly, and that performed really highly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And so, I'm sure this week actually, post about the Super Bowl or the halftime show, I think those would have done quite well this week, given that it was just this past week.
yeah. What are some other controversial things on LinkedIn, Dan, that you have a hardline stance on? I'm gonna tee one up for you. Back in the day, it was all about hashtags, and you would see a post that was maybe a few sentences of text and then 7 lines of every conceivable hashtag it could possibly relate to. What's your take on hashtags on LinkedIn in 2026?
My take doesn't really count, and I'll tell you why. Because I was that person who would have a ton of hashtags. You've seen my posts for the past 3 years, Aaron, 4 years. John's seen for the past 11. And I
A
used to be
hashtag or
that
two.
guy. I was that guy. But after meeting with the LinkedIn people, they're the ones, they're the experts. They actually say hashtags do not work because it's all searchable, right? It's all searchable. So don't even bother using hashtags anymore. It's a waste of your space. Use the space in your post to have some meaning, to add value, to have a call to action, right? At the end. But that's going to have way more efficacy towards your audience.
Yeah, I used to always, even our posts, I would do hashtag FutureProof yourself, and now it means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, my take on them is this. I think they worked longer on LinkedIn than a lot of other platforms got rid of them openly. Like they said, do not use these on our platform. The only value that I see is there is a little nostalgia for people like Dan and John who remember the old days, and it can be a funny, punchy way to end a post, but it's definitely not gonna show up algorithmically different. It's not gonna drive impressions because of the hashtag. So if you're using it maybe as a tongue-in-cheek way, like hashtag um, sorry not sorry, or hashtag millennial
Throwback
nostalgia
Thursday.
Friday, that's not really a conversation, but somebody might see that and laugh how you used it. How about this one? We haven't talked, so raw responses. Dan, what about tagging people and brands in your LinkedIn posts?
Well, this is just like replying back, right? When you reply directly back instead of just starting to fill in that blank space, when you hit the reply button and it actually tags the person back, that creates that extra push, that extra nudge. But yes, tagging people in the original post for sure will help, right? Because you're getting exposed to their networks. Maybe you want to tag, if it's about LinkedIn, then tag at LinkedIn, right?
You're also
But
you're also more likely to get someone to engage in your post afterward, right? Like
Mhm.
if Aaron and I met for coffee and we were networking, like great catching up at Aaron McKelkey, uh, loved talking about XYZ. Aaron's gonna comment underneath and say something, you know?
Yeah. I I have mixed feelings. And I think you guys have had this experience. You tend to be on the receiving end of a lot of tags from other people if you are a LinkedIn tryhard yourself. So we'll use Dan as an example. He posts a lot. He has a relatively large following. He's very active. I'm sure he has people that at the end of the post go, "Oh, this will do better if I just do at sign." That's what we mean by tagging Dan you. So he gets a notification and you know that's going to ding him or show up in his feed. I think it helps, but I also think it's annoying, and I get tagged with stuff all the time that I wish there was a polite way to say, "Don't let that person tag me anymore," without blocking them. I don't know if that's a feature. If it is, I haven't.
It's a feature to disable being tagged unless, yeah, I think there's a feature to disable it.
Selectively, or is it a all or nothing?
I think it's all or nothing.
Yeah, because I mean, I want you guys to tag me. You haven't been in my safe space, violating my LinkedIn feed like these people have. But if I could say, let them, but I don't even want to block this person's content. I just don't want them using me as their mule in the tags. And what I've seen, maybe it's just my network, is where people used to put hashtags. So the bottom block of text on a LinkedIn post, it might have had 12 hashtags a year ago. Now it has 12 people they think will engage or have large followings, and they just tag him. It's not like thanks to John, at sign him, and my friend Dan, at sign him. It's just a block of tags. And to me, it comes across as an insincere attempt to just manipulate the algorithm and kind of farm the engagement.
Yes, for sure. It's definitely even kind of creepy.
Yeah. Especially if it's,
So,
what if they keep tagging you and you're not responding? At what point, that
right.
please, LinkedIn people, add selective blocking for tags. I'll say this about brands. I think most of them get tagged for negative things. People complain, they have a bad experience, they hate your product. Remember who reads those. It's probably marketing and social media people. It's very doubtful that some executive, like the CEO, is not seeing every tag on LinkedIn, but they probably have a LinkedIn account. So if you really want to get those people's attention, if they allow the tagging, you might want to think about who you tag at the company besides just the brand account, because the brand account is just some marketing person, usually, unless it's a really small company.
Yeah, I also find that you know when companies will tag each other, right, as part of a friendly trolling game, I think those get a lot of traction, right? So maybe it's not a customer, a disgruntled customer, but you know someone wants to challenge Wendy's, right? Or maybe Elmo, right? They want to tag them. I think there's um some good possibilities for gaining exposure, but I also think there's some risk too, right? Because then you get in front of a massive audience that loves that brand potentially, right? And they'll flock there to defend that brand, and then you'll get ratioed.
Yep.
So
Definitely a risk reward factor that you have to think about before you do that. But that's also a great way to get engagement. If you flame
mhm.
John's favorite company, John's likely to jump in the comments and say, actually, I use their product and like them, or I know the CEO, he's a great leader, whatever.
I
Um,
would probably say, oh, you're just using it wrong, man.
yeah, yeah.
User error.
Yeah, I know how to patronize people really well.
How about let's talk content formats on LinkedIn that work, and let's start with what the old school meta strategy was. So let's say in 2023, 24, when I first started paying attention to LinkedIn, it used to be about carousels. One of the big things was put a series of images. If you're not familiar with the term, it's when you swipe through the images like the old Instagram used to be. That's no longer the way, it's still a way. But Dan, what do you know from your own experience and from talking to people directly at LinkedIn in terms of, okay, I have an idea, what content format and media type is best, or what strategy should I use to make sure I get good reach on my posts?
They actually recommended, still using writing. Just write the post. I think there's uh, there's definitely a trend of people being more aware of what an AI post looks like, and so I'd recommend, instead of using AI to write your whole post and then cut and paste, that post into LinkedIn. I think it will help you to maybe come up with an idea and first mile, what you might want to say. But after that, I mean, I think, authenticity is still going to be the way to do it. And so writing still works, right? I think there's an inundation of video, right, that people are now using LinkedIn with kind of the same mentality as an Instagram. And I think that's it gets to be a little bit of too noisy, with the videos these days. But I think a photo still works, especially if it's got an impactful kind of nature to it. Maybe, it's got your face on there, but I also think that there's that trend of using way too many selfies, right, in the video, in your photo. So that's you got to mix it up ultimately.
Yeah, John, what do you like for content formats? So even if it's in the written category, like how you structure it, the length, the style, there is a post versus an article. What do you like in terms of formats in 2026?
I mean, I think short and sweet works well. People don't read very long. Like I see people with walls of text. I'm like, I'm not reading. That's an article post to me, right? A wall of text, not a LinkedIn post. I always find that if you can bullet things, like when I'm posting opportunities, if I'm posting like everything I'm currently working on and I bullet each one with some short info about it, I get a lot of engagement from that. Just like a ton. Like I still get one from one I posted in November. I get like 30 views on it. So it's interesting. And I think that's what drives some people to my profile. I'll get people come, reaching out directly to me saying, hey, I'm a product leader and I'm looking for work. Can you help me? And we'll chat. The other thing is, I started doing this actually at Dan's kind of suggestion is I just write a hook and then I space down 2 spaces and post the rest of the content so people have to expand. Um, and I also, you'll see a post that I post later today, a little bit after this, because I had an idea for a post because of this conversation. And I want to see how much it gets in terms of engagement.
Yeah, it's probably a good trailer for actually when we finish and edit and then post this podcast. That'd be a
Mm,
good trailer.
mm.
Yeah, so let's talk hooks then, since John brought it up. After some research, as of February 2026, how many lines does a viewer see on a text-based post? So say they open their feed, it loads Dan's post. How many lines of text can we see in that preview view? Anybody know?
I think it's 3.
It is 3.
I think it's 2.5.
Ah, well, yes, you're both right. So I researched this, and I'm going to use this as an example of a way to use AI that doesn't do any sort of ideating and content adjustments on your own ideas, purely the formatting. The first line is a maximum of 62 characters. So that includes spaces, apostrophes, M dashes if you are bold enough to use those in 2026. Although I still like them. I hate how we all say that's just AI, but you get 62 characters across that first line. Your 63rd is going to be on the second line. That second line also will show a maximum of 62 characters. But Dan is correct. The third line has a more strict limit of only showing 50. So if you have a word that goes from your 50th to your 56th character on that third line, your viewer's going to see an ellipses and they're going to have to engage with your post, which again is one of those engagements that begets impressions, to expand it out and see the rest of not only that line, but the whole body of your post. The strategy that I like and that I'm experimenting with right now, John sounds like he's doing a version of this as well, is only put text on 2 out of those 3 lines. And it makes sense to do it on the first line. So what I do is either first line 62, second line 62 or less, third line blank, or if you prefer, you can put the space on the second line and go first line, double return, know that your word's going to get cut off at 50. And if you put it in the right spot that somebody's brain goes, I just want to know what the rest of the sentence says from that second line, if you put it at 50th character, they're going to have to engage to get the preview and pop it out. That, of course, does not guarantee it goes viral, or we're not hypesters, but it feeds the algorithm. It counts as an engagement. It drives up dwell time. And I think the psych expert on our podcast would agree. That's ultimately what a hook does, is it opens a loop in your brain and you're like, I can't scroll by until I hear the rest of the story or the mistake I'm making. Click.
Yeah, it's all, you could almost make it like a cliffhanger, right? It's, you know, the greatest thing you should know is,
Yep.
and then ellipses.
I just did one today on a company page where I talked about a commercial that was made, and I put text first line, second line space, third line at 50, it was explaining the name of a commercial. So it basically says, hey, for the Super Bowl, we made a commercial about, and then it gets cut off. I was like, why not? Because even if they don't care about the content, then we're like, wait, what's the commercial about? And they're going to click that to expand. So play with that. It might change, but that's also the limit on mobile. So not just desktop, that's people on their phones as well. Um, how about this? What's your rule when you write an article instead of a text post, Dan? Because you do both and you've done them a long time. You've seen them change. Is it a word length? Is it just based on this idea? I know I want to go deep, therefore it's an article. How do you decide?
Not necessarily word length. It's kind of something that I would think about. Like, is this content potentially evergreen? So if it's potentially evergreen, then I'll make it an article so that it goes into a different bucket on your LinkedIn profile. And then it becomes actually easily shareable because you don't have to go, hunt for it, right? And plus, if you're posting often, then stuff can get buried in your feed. And so having it in the articles bucket, I think is a good way to at least save things in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great framework and not one that I've thought of, and I should use that more. Is this something that someone will still find value in a year from now that becomes an article versus a what's trending in February 2026 is definitely not going to be evergreen, so that should just be a post.
Right.
Um,
Right. And I mean, my article on LinkedIn profiles, it's from 2017. We all use it, right? We use it in our classes. And that's in my articles bucket. Same thing with the Jedi mind trick article for interviews. It's a technique we still teach to this day. And that's an article.
yeah. How about going into 2026, Dan, based on what you've learned from both your own experience on the platform, but getting to meet people at LinkedIn and be at their headquarters, what are you changing about your content strategy on LinkedIn? Something you're going to start doing, stop doing more of, less of?
I think it's part of it is going to be how I interact with LinkedIn. So one of the cool things that LinkedIn added recently is AI powered people search. So and then there's also AI powered job search. But let's just talk about the first thing, the people search. If you want to find people that in Barcelona, right, that also happen to be in marketing, right? You can do that. Like, oh, do I know this person, or are they maybe one connection away? Kind of in that second, that second ring of contacts. I think that's going to be an interesting. And then maybe, that's a way for you to target that person, right? Potentially with, some kind of a local message, right? So there's that AI powered job search. I think that's something that everybody should be researching. This is so you're not spamming recruiters, right? And wasting your time too, right? I mean, we don't want to waste anybody's time, including your own. And so you're having that AI powered job search will really help match your skills. But as far as content is concerned, I think you're just trying to figure out what is the value add, on a day-to-day basis, and also really thinking about, is it evergreen? What can I do to add value to the universe, right? And not just not just pitch something. Like, not every post has to have a call to action, right? You want to make sure that you're reading your audience, especially like on a Saturday. You don't want to have a hard hitting post. You want to have a nice relaxed post. Sunday too, right? You want to have a more serious post. Put that on Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, that's good advice to fit it to the mindset the audience is in. Saturday, reading the newspaper at home, eating brunch versus Tuesday at the office with the business mindset. John, what about you? What are you going to do more of, less of, or change with your own content on LinkedIn in 2026?
I think for me, it's just trying. I've finally built out a little bit of a content strategy that I'm going to start to try and follow. Um, I've already started to try and engage more in other posts, and I think just more volume of content that might be meaningful. Try not to overthink it. Quick posts.
Yeah, I'm going to
How
push.
about you, Aaron?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to offer my opinion whether anybody asked or not. I'm going to go the opposite direction of Dan, not because Dan's wrong, just because I have different experiences. And I have done less video than I realize I should have. And LinkedIn, like many other platforms, has this feature that'll say, 1 year ago, you had this post. In January of 2026, I got that pop up and I saw a fairly low effort video, probably took 5 minutes of my life to make. And then I looked at my analytics for the past year, and it was responsible for something like 70 or 80% of the total impressions I had for the entire year from this one video. And I had this thought, okay, I knew that was the case. This was not a surprise. Why did I not post videos regularly? And the way that I view video, and in my circles, which includes Dan and John, but also some people who are more video centric and less text based creators, video seems to have outsized returns. So I think of it like this: video is swinging for the fences every at bat. You will strike out a lot. You will have videos with very low impressions that are probably more time and effort for you to make than a text based post or an image based post. However, in my own personal experience, it can also get spun up in the algorithm inexplicably. It wasn't a great video. It didn't get a ton of engagements, like 80 comments right away or anything crazy. It just got put in a feed somewhere that got spun up. And I have not had an article, a text post, an image post do anything like I have seen with my own videos. So I've already done more video this year than I did last year. Still not enough, but I think in terms of the media first, and then I think of the caption or the copy. And it's so funny to hear Dan, because Dan is very much a text-based person. Like, I'll write this out and then maybe think what would go with it for a graphic or a picture. I actually think the opposite, and most of mine is a screenshot, or I have an idea for a video, and then I think, well, what do I write to go along with it? Either way works. It just depends on what you're most comfortable with. And what I see all the time is, do the one that's least friction for you. If a video seems like too much
Mm-hmm.
work to pick this up and put a mic and edit it, that's totally okay. You don't have to do video. But if you go, oh, I stare at a blank screen and don't know what to write, then don't do it that way. Start with, a graphic or a screenshot or a picture, and then think backwards from there.
I would start with
Yeah,
the graphic.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really fun that we all have three starting points. But I think to your point, Aaron, I think the editors that are there, they're so easy to use now, right? So whatever whatever app that you may use. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's TikTok, right? Or iMovie. Like the editors are so easy to use, and you adding elements like music or whatever, just so easy. It's all right there.
Yeah.
So the
Maybe it's Descript.
maybe it's Descript. Hey, we're going to plug them too. But the idea is that the friction that you may perceive it to be is really not there, right? And so John's image-based post, your video-based post, me using AI to first mile my a potential idea, right? Like the friction is really kind of in your head, I think. So I hope this encourages everybody out there to go ahead and try different things.
Yeah. And I think the reason why video is more of a focus is for now, there's a higher barrier to entry for the AI spam cannons. And we all have
Mhm.
seen people, whether it's their posts or their comments, that the text is clearly low effort AI generated slop. And you should curate your feed. You should report the post or block the person. That's great. But I do think that video, especially if you've been doing it and you look like your profile picture, there is more of a trust in video, not absolute trust, but more so than text, that this is an authentic, real idea from a human, not Claude or ChatGPT. So, with that, we care about this. Use the platform, post, share your opinions and your ideas. Do not be a doom scroller. Do not be a lurker. Do not be a low effort. I just repost my company's thing once every 6 months. Share your own authentic insights. And if you have questions, DM Dan or John or I. And also just look at them as an example. And one of the fun things when you become a poster is you view other people's content differently. Instead of just consuming it, you start to say, oh, I like the hook that John uses. I'm going to try a hook in my own post. I liked that image that Dan did. I like how Aaron did the green screen video. I'll try one of that, my own content, but his format that he showed. And you can just plug and play from everybody else and figure out what works for you. And then finally, our website, futureproof-you.com. If you are looking to take control of your career in a very uncertain time, whether that's you're a job hugger, you're a job seeker, a career pivoter, there's always something calling you, but you're not sure how to make that switch. That's why we exist, and our website has tons of free resources. We have a blog. We do live classes in the spring of 2026. Every other week, we have a live class, including topics like a LinkedIn quick start guide and ace the interview. So especially if you're somebody who's interviewing in an industry or a format like on Zoom that you're not used to, John is our resident psych expert and has been through tens of thousands of interviews. So he teaches our students how to ace those and be confident. And then send us a message. If you have questions, need help, career ideas, LinkedIn content, reach out to us. We also have FutureProof You on our LinkedIn company page. So I have been your host, Aaron McKelkey. Thank you, co-host John Lovick and Dan Yu, for your time and your expertise. We are FutureProof You. This is the Go F Yourself podcast. Go make some awesome content on LinkedIn, everybody.